Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables and sponsored by Analyst Depot. I'm your host, Ashley. This is my lovely co-host, Michael Duncan. How are you?
I'm doing just dandy, Ashley. How are you?
I am good. Happy to be back. Lots to talk about. The NFL has officially passed the franchise tag deadline, so all of those who are being franchise tagged have already been. We have lots of new contracts, and we'll preview some of the upcoming free agency. So...
yes, we will.
Where do you want to start?
Let's just go through a couple quick coaching changes things.
Okay.
Obviously, we took the last couple weeks off, but there wasn't, all the head coaches were hired before, by the time we did our last episode after the Super Bowl. But two big moves, one of which is not too surprising, both with the Eagles after losing both their offensive and defensive coordinator. They did promote Brian Johnson from quarterback coach to offensive coordinator, a move that was not surprising to anyone that was following along with the Eagles at all. He's most likely going to be a head coach. He's going to be a very hot head coaching candidate in a year or two. So not too shocking there. The Eagles knew it. He had offers to go coach elsewhere, offensive coordinator. But he's also known Jalen Hurts like his entire life, which is kind of crazy. So very obvious move there. And then they hired Sean Desai out of Seattle as the defensive coordinator. He won the job over in-house candidate Denard Wilson, who then quickly mutually parted ways with the Eagles and left to go coach the DBs in Baltimore. Sean Desai was the defensive coordinator for a little bit in Chicago. Actually had a decent amount of success there before just being a part of the firing that happened, 2 years ago, and was able to catch on in Seattle for a little bit before landing this job. And that does leave the Eagles as, I think, the only, I could be wrong about that. The Bucks maybe, but one of the only teams in the NFL with all three coordinators being minorities, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. Also, I thought while you were talking about that, we didn't get to talk about Eric Bieniemy yet either.
Yes, good point.
Yes, that was the one we had missed. Eric Bieniemy did move on from the Kansas City Chiefs and is now an assistant head coach with the Washington Commanders.
And offensive coordinator.
Sorry, that was like the assistant head coach was like a little caveat in his resume. Yeah. I know part of it is kind of making one last push. There's been many coaching cycles where he was rumored to be one of the biggest, hot.
It was like every
head coaching cycle for the last several years. It seems to be one last push for him to say, listen, it's not just Andy Reid. I do have something to show. So he moved on to the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I have a really hard time with that whole scenario because I think I tend to look on the bright side a little too often when it comes to stuff with minority coaches and all that. And that's something that I'm trying to work on. But it's not like we don't ever see them get hired, and it's not like he doesn't have the exact resume that people are looking for. There has to be something. I feel like there has to be something. You've had different players come out in the past that have said, he doesn't do much. It's really not him. It's Andy or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're not in the building. We're not in the interviews. I don't know if he interviews well. He certainly talked well in his opening press conference with the Washington Commanders, but that's not the same as an interview. So I have no clue. I don't know what to think about the whole thing. I hope for his sake, I hope he has success in Washington. Of all the places to go, that's not really where I'd want to go. There are train wreck waiting to happen all the time. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. It was an interesting move considering there were other options open, but for him, for the Commanders, they feel like it's best for their future, even with lots of gaps to fill for that team. Big news this past week was that Calvin Ridley was officially reinstated by the NFL. He will play for the Jaguars this year. He was traded from the Falcons to the Jaguars while he was suspended on his indefinite suspension. Calvin Ridley did put out a really amazing article in which he goes into talking about, just straight up, I messed up, and here's a little bit why. I wanted to read one little part of it that stuck with me, and it says, whenever people ask, quote, what were you thinking? The only answer I can give is I wasn't. When you're depressed, you're not thinking about anything in the future. You're just trying to get through the day. In the article, he talks about how he had a broken foot, how somebody had just broken into his home. He had stepped away from football because of anxiety and depression. And just we talk a lot about how the NFL has, and the players specifically, have tried to decrease the stigma around mental health in sports. And to hear an article written so eloquently, so like personable, that you can read it and really relate to his story, and being so open with his struggles with mental health, was really, really amazing.
I agree. It was a really great read.
Mm-hmm.
Not something I was expecting when I woke
No.
up this morning. But again, really awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I've been very lucky as an Eagles fan to have both Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson be two of the most outspoken players in the NFL when it comes to mental health struggles. It's something that has very much been a part. Like, I remember when the Eagles made the Super Bowl in 2017, with all the national media, they would all ask Brandon Brooks to tell his story about all of the stuff he went through about 1,000 times. And all you heard from the Eagles media guys were like, yeah, that's awesome. We've written about 20 articles on that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that we don't like, it's an incredible story, but we don't need to hear it again. We're doing other things. So I think sometimes I do kind of forget how lucky I am in terms of how normalized that is in our fans' culture. Comparatively to the 31 other teams. So it's awesome to hear Calvin Ridley talk out about it. I don't think that it's a coincidence to look at who his head coach is now. Doug Peterson, who coached that 2017 Eagles team and has dealt with is the wrong word, but has eloquently dealt with the stigma surrounding mental health when it comes to his players before. So it's awesome to hear. It sounds like he's right. I'm glad he's feeling good. He says he's going to put up 1,400 yards a year with Trevor Lawrence. I love it. So yeah, I'm just excited to see him back on the field, and I'm glad that he didn't try to make excuses.
Yep, exactly. And I think that was a really cool thing for me. He goes into a little bit about the specifics of what, why he put money on it and wasn't thinking and all this, but just to blatantly say I messed up, and I'm not talking myself out of it. Like I was straight up the entire time, was really awesome. How are you feeling about him on the Jaguars? I know we've had the conversation about him when the trade happened, about how this could be one of the greats of a trade when it happened, if he was to be unsuspended and reinstated. How are you feeling now about that?
Oh, I love it. I still think it's an awesome trade. I think if there's one thing that Doug Peterson's really good at, it's knowing, who his good players are and getting the ball in their hands and building an offense around them. And I mean, you saw Trevor Lawrence was able to take a huge leap last year, and that was, he made Zay Jones and Marvin Jones, maybe to a lesser extent, and Christian Kirk, like that was it was a humming passing attack a lot of the time. Travis Etienne and Evan Ingram as well. So you take that and then you just throw in an alpha wide receiver. Like, it reminds me a lot of what the Eagles did going into last season. Like, you already had a couple of really good pieces with Devonta Smith, who's a number one in his own right, and Dallas Goedert, and then you just throw in a guy who's proven to be an alpha level wide receiver in the NFL. Like, that's no small thing. And this isn't Christian Kirk coming in last year for a crap ton of money. This is a guy who at his peak was arguably like a top 12-ish wide receiver that we've seen. He's still young. We've seen it recently. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm very excited for that offense.
Yeah. We've also talked a lot about how a lot of teams and specific systems and schemes can really benefit from having a true wide receiver one.
Yeah.
And Christian Kirk was in that role last year, and sometimes the moment felt just a little bit too big for him. I think he performed incredibly, but putting someone like Calvin Ridley on this team as a very true wide receiver one, again, we haven't seen him in a little bit, but who has shown he can be a wide receiver one, is super intriguing for a Jaguars team who unsuspectingly made the playoffs and made their push this year.
And won around.
So I think they are one of the more intriguing teams coming into this upcoming season. And speaking of, let's talk about some new contracts. So why don't we just start with Derek Carr, who is now officially a Saint. He is signed for 4 years and $150 million with the New Orleans Saints. It seems like Jameis Winston is going to be cut as a, casualty in this.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Like, I don't think I could possibly pick a more uninspiring duo of just like, I don't really know that I fully believe in the Saints in general, their coaching staff, the team they have. Like, they have pieces that I like. That's great. But like, And then on top of that, it's like the most meh quarterback of all time, maybe outside of Kirk Cousins, when it comes to just like, you're really not sure how to feel about them most of the time. He's a good quarterback, belongs in the NFL, definitely the starter in the NFL, but I don't think he's ever going to take a team over the edge. Like, I was hoping for Derek Carr to land in a place that was much more like we're a quarterback away type situation. Or honestly, like somewhere like the Giants, where you've got a really, really, really creative coach that could really, really maximize him. And I don't think we got either of those situations. I think the Saints were fooling themselves when they went kind of all in last year, very stupidly, as I've mentioned many times. But yeah, and now you're going to get like a decent amount of, you're going to get like 11 million in dead money from Jameis Winston being cut. If he's a post June 1, I believe it's a little bit less. Yeah, it's less. It's just cut, it's like 3 million per year for the next couple of years. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It doesn't make me excited. It makes me excited for Chris Olave.
Yeah.
Like that's really it. It's like, I like Chris Olave. Now he has a better quarterback throwing to him, I guess. Great.
But he's like the only weapon.
And Alvin Kamara, who's facing probably a 16
that's what I was going to mention.
Michael Thomas is a free agent.
Yeah. Thrilling. The one upside to it seems to be that he's the only real starting quarterback in the NFC South currently. The Buccaneers don't riding with Kyle Trask, I guess. The Panthers, who the heck knows, and the Falcons between Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. So who knows? He seems like he's the only one who may walk into just an NFC South championship, but who knows with that weird division.
Well, Mariota's he got cut, I believe.
Oh, did he?
Yes. Yeah, he's released. Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I saw that because then it was like, oh, they're fully going in on Desmond Ridder. So, but there are still some options for these teams. But as of right now, he's like the only real proven.
Yeah, he's the only established quarterback.
Yeah.
Like by far. It's not even close.
Yep. So interesting for him that he may just straight up walk into an NFC South.
Well, yeah, you compare that to Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and who am I missing? He was the Raiders. Oh, Russell Wilson. Like, you compare those three to this three, and it's like, wow, Derek Carr went from being third or fourth best to by far the best quarterback in the division. It's kind of a crazy jump there.
Yep. So we're talking about three quarterbacks. Our next quarterback is Geno Smith, who signed a 3-year deal with the Seattle Seahawks for $105 million. I want to pull up some of the specifics. I did forget to do that, but what are your thoughts on it so far?
I think it's a great deal for both for Geno and for the Seahawks. I mean, it's just, I think it's fairly low risk. I think it's
$30 million fully guaranteed at signing.
Yeah, like it's just you could argue he played better than Derek Carr and Daniel Jones last year, and he's making less money on a more team-friendly deal. So, like, I don't have I have no complaints. Because it's the type of contract where you can still also, like, it's only 3 years. He's getting older. You can still draft a young quarterback and choose to. I mean, I'm pretty sure they paid like whoever the dude the backup to Aaron Rodgers a billion years ago that they paid a crap ton of money, Matt Flynn. I'm pretty sure they paid Matt Flynn more money and then benched him to start Russell Wilson. So, like, it's not like it's this gigantic contract that you're going to have a really hard time getting out of. Like, I don't think it screws the franchise at all if it doesn't work out. So, just like an A all around for Geno, and great for Geno as well. So,
yep. And Pete Carroll has been actually fairly open about the fact that they're still pursuing the future, like that Geno Smith could be their future quarterback, but they're not putting all their eggs in one basket. And Pete Carroll has been pretty transparent about that with the NFL draft coming up in 40 some odd days, 50 days. He's been pretty open about the fact that they may explore taking someone in the first round just to sit the bench and try and develop, because the Seahawks team does feel like it's in they have a chance, they don't have a chance, kind of stuck in the middle. So paying money and still being able to explore the future, I think it's a win-win for the Seahawks and for Geno Smith. And for someone who loves, I wrote them, they didn't write back. So Geno Smith now officially wrote back. Did I say that right? How did he say that? I was not as good. Okay, good enough.
Also, by the way, I was very wrong about Matt Flynn. They signed him to a 3-year, $20 million deal. But that was in 2012.
What's inflation look like?
Yeah, for like a free agent backup quarterback, I don't know, but it felt like a lot more back then. That's all I can say. So
I want to plug in an inflation calendar.
Calculator.
Sorry.
You can try and plug it into a calendar. Million. I don't think it's going to do much. 20 million.
2012, you said?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Great
I put 2 million. Sorry. You do this all the time.
I know, and I normally comment, this is great podcasting.
Yeah, either way, I can't look it up past 10 million, so I guess I'll do that later for some reason.
You could just look up 10 million and double it.
I could, but now it's making me try again, so.
Okay, well, this is great. And now you're doing it again.
You just told me to do it again.
Well, yeah, and then you were like, I can't.
Okay, so 10 million in January of 2012 is $13 million now. Okay, so 26. Not crazy, but still a little bit more.
I meant more like the inflation of the general NFL.
Yeah, I just meant money.
Yeah. At
least see where we got confused.
And anyway, last but not least, unless you had anything more to say about Geno Smith or Matt.
No, not really.
Great. Daniel Jones, you can go.
Yes, the Giants right at the wire, trying to decide if they were going to franchise tag him or sign him to a new deal after long discussions with his agents. Signed Daniel Jones to a 4-year, $160 million deal. There's $35 million more in incentives, $82 million over the first 2 years, virtually $94 million guaranteed when he signs, which he did sign. The Giants released that. And an important note is that the first year cap hit is only $19 million. Joe Schoen did come out in a press conference and say, if I thought I would have been here a year ago, I definitely would have used the 5th-year option. So yeah, they pay Daniel Jones some pretty big bucks.
So go ahead.
What are your thoughts? My thoughts. Originally, when that first number came out, I really didn't. It was a lot higher than I was hoping for. The caveat is I really do like the $19 million in cap space in the first season. I know you're going to have a comeback for that one. We've talked about it already. But I do like that. It feels like the best compromise they could have made with Jones's agents. For me, it feels like this was kind of one of the only solutions for the Giants. I don't see them going into the draft and trading up to select a quarterback. I don't know that they would have been able to compete in free agency for someone like Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, a Derek Carr was possible, but they were trying to work the deal very hard, and it seems like they were all in on Daniel Jones no matter what. The other option was to franchise tag him and let Saquon Barkley walk. As a fan, I love that I still have Saquon Barkley. You and I talked about it before. As someone who can try and step back and look at it logically, it doesn't seem like the best, but I still have faith in this new regime until they prove to me otherwise that I shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I thank you for being more honest with yourself now than you were when we were talking beforehand.
You're welcome.
Yeah, could they have done worse things? Absolutely. I think given the situation that they're in, was it the wrong move? Absolutely. I have unless Daniel Jones turns out to be an actual franchise quarterback, this is the wrong move. And I think at this point you have 4 years of proof that he most likely is not. That being said, the thing I have a bigger issue with is probably Saquon Barkley coming back on the franchise tag, because that almost negates the fact that you're only paying Daniel Jones, or his cap hit is only 19 million this year, because you have a 10 million cap hit this year, a cap hold on Saquon Barkley. There's no messing with that number. It is 10 million against the cap. And you do that because you paid Daniel Jones. Yeah, otherwise you would have had to franchise Daniel Jones, whatever.
Yep. But
it does negate it a little bit. You can say that cap number is there, so you could franchise tag Saquon Barkley, whatever. This was always going, like, we talked about it 1,000 times in the offseason, during the season. This was always going to be the issue. It was, who do you pay? Is it both of them? Is it neither of them? I would have franchise tagged Daniel Jones and let Saquon walk, because like, and we were talking about this, like, yeah, okay, he doesn't cost a lot next year. That cap number goes up dramatically in 2024, at which point Saquon is, again, open for a new contract, or you can franchise tag him again, and he costs more money. But Daniel Jones is going to be costing $45 million against the cap. So at that point, what do you do? If you think this team can turn it around and win a Super Bowl next year, great, fine. I disagree with that, but that's fine. If that's their rationale and they're going to turn it around just like that, which is possible, great. They don't have a very good starting spot with that, which makes it a very difficult proposition to say that's about to happen, but fine. Let's operate as if that happens. Then it's fine. You go into 2024, you figure it out. If that doesn't happen, then you're in 2024 and you're faced with almost the exact same situation, except you don't have the flexibility with the Daniel Jones contract. And Saquon Barkley is either going to get a lot more money, or he's going to get a franchise tag, or he's walking, at which point your team got worse. And at that point, like, yeah, hopefully you've got a better team, but like, what skill players on this team are you excited about and think that are a part of the future? Because for me, excited about Saquon, part of your future, I'm not sure I can think of any. I mean, I guess the second round pick, whose name is escaping me.
Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson, sure.
He was a first round pick, right?
He was a first? No, he wasn't a first round pick.
Early second? I don't remember.
Yeah, he was a second round pick. Kadarius Toney was a first round pick.
Yes, there we
go. And they're basically the same person, so it's fine.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I just like... it's so hard to look at it in a vacuum. And I guess when I really zoom out, that's where I have a bigger issue with it. In a vacuum, individually, those moves I don't have an issue with. Generally speaking, franchise tagging, running backs, fine, whatever. It's very situational because of the giant cap hold that you're going to have. Giant is for franchise tags, it's not that bad. It's less than tight end, which is crazy. But it's really just when I zoom out and I say, like, okay, what does this get you? Like, how does this make you feel a year from now? What is this? What position does this put your franchise in 3 years from now? And it's like, okay, like, in 3 years from now, you could get out of the Daniel Jones contract. Okay, but then where are you? And it's
back
just
where
like,
you started.
Yeah, you're back where you started. And it's like, you know, you have your coach. That's great.
Yeah.
And it's not hard. Like, it's possible to get out of one quarterback and go to the next, but it doesn't happen that often. The Eagles got so incredibly lucky going from Carson Wentz, who they thought they had a guy in, to Jalen Hurts, who apparently they do. And I'm sure Daniel Jones just made Jalen Hurts probably $10 million extra a year. Thanks, Daniel Jones. Maybe that's a part of the reason I'm angry, but
yeah, but I mean, you look at a team like the Patriots, who thought they had one of the most NFL ready quarterbacks coming out of the draft, and have Mac move on from Tom Brady to, let's forget the Cam Newton saga, onto Mac Jones as a franchise quarterback, and look at where they are. So I get what you're saying. I think for me, the improvements last year make this feel a lot better. And to make it feel completely right, I've hated making the comparison since Dable came over, but you need to see some sort of Josh Allen type leap. And yes, he made strides last year, but it needs to be this absolutely can carry a team on your back. So I think part of that comes from having to put the weapons on this team that can actually do something on the offensive line and the holes that were there and in skill positions, which is why I really do like that 19 million first year cap hit. But I understand where you're coming from, that 3 years from now, we may completely look back and say, this is why we're doomed to another 5, 7, 10 years of issues.
And it doesn't have to be that long.
No.
Like, the NFL is no longer in a place where it takes that long to rebuild. The Eagles were the first team in NFL history to make it to two Super Bowls with a different head coach and quarterback in each of them within 5 years. Like it is not that long of a rebuilding process anymore. But the NFL also doesn't have the patience. And I would hate to see Brian Dabble be in a spot where like it looks like it's his fault.
Yep. I agree. So that's basically it for our big quarterback and big contracts. There obviously were some other contracts. I urge you all to look them up, but you and I have been talking a lot about franchise tag. So for those who don't know, the franchise tag is when NFL teams are able to put a tag on a player to guarantee them a 1-year deal. They go on players who were impending free agents. So we're going to go ahead into free agency. There's 2 types of franchise tags. The other one is an exclusive tag, which means that player cannot negotiate with any other teams. But all of the tags this year are non-exclusive franchise tags, which means the player who is franchise tagged is able to negotiate with other teams. They're allowed, if negotiating, they're allowed to Giant Saquon Barkley. We've mentioned Saquon Barkley is tagged. If he was to go to speak to another team and they made him a deal, the Giants then have the opportunity to match that deal and sign that deal. Or he sticks on his current franchise. Or he leaves or can stick on his current franchise tag. Why do you look? What are you pondering over?
I didn't realize that all of these players received the non-exclusive franchise
Every
tag.
last one of them.
That's news to me.
Yeah, every one of them. And to note, only one player has ever been on a non-exclusive franchise tagged, then signed with another team, signed a deal with another team and went to that other team. That only happened once with Sean Gilbert in 1998. So we have 3 running backs who are on franchise tag numbers real quick. The pay for the franchise tag is listed by position. So all 3 running backs who receive non-exclusive franchise tags are getting paid the same amount. It is $10,091,000. So obviously we have mentioned Saquon Barkley. We can move right along to Raiders running back Josh Jacobs and Cowboys running back Tony Pollard. I know we have a lot to say about the Cowboys. Do you want to start there?
I'm sorry. I'm still is this the one that gets given out every year?
Yeah.
Is it always this many people that get the non-exclusive franchise tag?
Pretty sure.
And is it just because it's 2 firsts that no one ever talks about it except when you're a quarterback?
Yeah.
Because I'm legitimately flabbergasted right now.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Because do you want to explain the picks? I can't.
Yeah. So the pick side of the non-exclusive franchise tag.
Yes.
Is that what you're asking me to explain? Yeah. So basically, specifically when it comes to Lamar or Saquon, anyone with the non-exclusive franchise tag, they can negotiate with other teams. Say the Cowboys wanted to sign Saquon Barkley to a 5-year deal worth $100 million. They would have to then that has to go back to the Giants. The Giants either have to say yay or nay. If they say yay, then they're going to sign Saquon to the same deal and done. Saquon's a Giant. But if they don't, if they say nay, then in order for the Cowboys to sign Saquon to that deal, they also have to give up 2 first-round picks to the Giants to have the right to sign Saquon to that deal. So any deal that any of these free agents are going to sign, the other team has the tagging team has a chance to match it or receive 2 first-round picks when giving up the tag rights for that player.
Yep. Franchise tag feels a little bit like tennis or like the checks and balances system where it bounces back and forth until someone gets what they want. So I am pretty sure that it's mostly because of the first that I'm pretty sure it's non-exclusive franchise tags every year.
I believe you. This is just something I'm going to have to research because it feels like no one has ever said non-exclusive franchise tag before.
I think that's just
franchise tag.
Yes, I think that's why, because it's the most common one that people just call it the franchise tag. I think if there was an exclusive franchise tag, you say exclusive friend. I think that's the way it is.
And I guess the reason it's so shocking to me is because no one ever says it, and then all of a sudden they're saying it about Lamar.
Yes.
And I guess it makes sense because no one's going to give up Lamar. 2 firsts for anything other than a fucking quarter. Whoops.
We made it so good. I didn't use the word from Calvin Ridley's thing. We made it so far.
It's fine. I'm flabbergasted. I'm really thrown off.
I know.
Anyway, I want to talk about the Cowboys. They're morons. Yeah, they're absolute and total.
Before we get into this, can we please the Jerry Jones quote? The Jerry Jones quote that says, Dak Prescott. I'm gonna misquote it because I don't have it pulled up right now, but it's along the lines of Dak Prescott has the chance to be is as impactful on Brady as Brady was on the Patriots.
Dak
As
Prescott is
his cap
30
hit is
years old.
increasing every year.
He is
Yeah.
30 years old. We would have known by now if he was
Yeah.
going to be Tom Brady. Jerry Jones, you old sack of shit. Oh my God.
There's literally no excuses for it anymore. He had like a stacked roster, a
He's
stacked
good, it's
defense. He's
fine.
every aspect
He's
of
not
it.
Tom
and
Brady.
No. So
And also,
either
Tom
way,
Brady never made that much money. Like, that's the
No.
other thing. You're talking about cap hit. Tom Brady took less money consistently
Yeah.
because the Patriots did a thing where they paid his. They cheated the system. Low key, high key.
That's the Patriots. Though.
It's fine. It's the Patriots. Everyone just kind of ignored it. It's beside the point. We've all moved on.
Yeah, but obviously
no.
they have Dak on a huge deal and
They have Dak
Ezekiel
on a huge
Elliott on
deal.
a huge deal.
Yeah, so-
and now they franchise tag running back Tony Pollard for
So
10.09.
two of their top 7 cap hits this season on their roster are running backs. Ezekiel
Yay.
Elliott and Tony Pollard.
That's totally the path
Tony
to
Pollard
success.
is 10.6 million. Zeke is set to make
10.09.
16 million. They have 2 of the top running back cap hits in the entire NFL on the same team.
What?
Why? When was the last time a team won a Super Bowl paying a running back a crap ton of money, let alone 2 of them? Zeke is probably going to get restructured.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be that much because Jerry Jones loves him.
Yep.
And he's a moron. And I hope Jerry Jones has found the fountain of youth and lives forever to run the Cowboys. And by run, I mean ruin. Because this is just stupid. It's so dumb. Tony Pollard is better than Zeke at this point. If you want to cut, fine. If you want to cut Zeke, but they're not going to. They would have done it already. They're stupid. They're so dumb. Running backs are so devalued. The Titans are talking about trading Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Like 3 of the 4 I was looking at this earlier and then I got distracted. So if you look at these are the top cap hits in the NFL for running back. Christian McCaffrey, he just got traded.
Yep.
He's also he's spent a lot of time injured. Like, should he be doing that? Should they be paying him that much? Whatever. Ezekiel Elliott, possibly a cap casualty, or should be. He isn't. Yes, he's the second highest paid running back.
No.
He has the most total money in his contract. Alvin Kamara had a pretty bad year last year.
May not play.
Yeah, and he might miss 6 games. Dalvin Cook is heavily talked about as a cap casualty, possibly. Derrick Henry is the exact same thing. Nick Chubb, not so much. Joe Mixon, absolutely. Aaron Jones just restructured so he could stay with the Packers. Giants, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, all 3 of them were just franchise tagged. Like,
I don't think a team has ever looked back and said, "Thank God we paid 2 running backs $26 million this year."
I don't think any team has looked since the 80s. I don't think a team has looked back and said, "Thank God we paid a running back."
Yeah,
unless you're the Titans and you have Derrick Henry, but even then, it's like, thank God we made the playoffs.
Yeah,
you didn't make a Super Bowl. And look at the Chiefs and the Eagles. In the most recent example of the Super Bowl, the Chiefs had Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was inactive. It was Jerick McKinnon, the ghost of, 7th round rookie in Isaiah Pacheco, and one other guy whose name I'm not even remembering who it is. The Eagles had Miles Sanders, a former 2nd round pick that they're going to let walk in free agency, almost for sure, unless he comes back on a very cheap deal. 4th round pick, 2nd year, Kenny Gainwell, and the forever restricted free agent that makes no money in Boston Scott. And then, Trey Sermon, who was cut by the Niners a year after being a 3rd round pick, who makes zero money and was not active. Like,
it's so illogical.
Why?
Because they're the Cowboys.
They're so stupid. It makes me so angry, but so happy at the same. Like, the football side of me is like, you are a moron and you deserve every loss that comes your way. Yeah. But then the Eagles fan side of me is like, thank God.
Let it be.
That's like, I was sad when they fired Joe Judge because I was like,
dang.
If Dan Snyder sells, the Eagles fan side of me is going to be sad because he won't be there to ruin the Commanders anymore.
Exactly. So. Yeah, at some point somebody needs to take the controller away from Jerry Jones. And
that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like his son was
Doesn't he
like,
eat like a McMuffin or something every morning?
I don't know.
Something like that.
Old white men can live forever if they try
Yeah.
hard enough and make enough money. So
Yeah. Either way, absolute double thumbs down for me on that one.
double thumbs up for me.
Okay, so both sides. That we get both sides of it. How same price tag, obviously 10.09 for Raiders running back Josh Jacobs, who wasn't he on his fifth? No, he was denied his
No,
fifth
they
year
denied the
option.
fifth-year option.
They
Yep.
denied his fifth year option and instead are now having to place the franchise tag on him.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
The Raiders don't matter enough for me to get angry about it. And again, it's
Yeah.
like generally speaking, I don't hate franchise tagging running backs if you're not doing anything else of the position. And I mean, like, should they be doing it considering the fact that they're probably not? I mean, maybe they get Aaron Rodgers or something, and then it's worth it. Like, in that scenario, fine, whatever. I'm not nearly as angry about it.
Yep. The Jaguars choose to keep one of their weapons. They decide to franchise tag tight end Evan Ingram. The cap hit for that will be 11.345. I did forget to mention all of the money on franchise tags is fully guaranteed.
Yes, and it's all a cap hit this season. It's not something that can be prorated into other seasons. You can't restructure it. It is a cap hold on this season.
Yep. I like that for the Jaguars. I think Evan Ingram was a reliable target for the first time in a while for Trevor Lawrence. I think he showed up in some big moments for them. Thinking about it with Calvin Ridley coming back as having another set of hands there, it does put a little bit of an asterisk on it, but I I'm just saying, but overall I really like it. I think it's very good for the Jaguars, and I do think Evan Ingram even made some improvements in blocking. That's never been his strong suit, but made some improvements in blocking with the Jaguars. I really, really double thumbs up like this from them.
Oh, and by the way, the Cowboys could have franchise tagged Dalton Schultz and paid him $1 million more than Tony Pollard and have him not be a backup at his position. Morons.
Forgot about that. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts? You like it. I know you like it.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like Evan Ingram. I think Doug Peterson loves having a good tight end, and Evan Ingram probably had the best year of his career last year since his rookie season. So,
we can move past this one quickly so we can go into the big one here. But the Commanders franchise tag defensive tackle Darren Payne for 18.9. I always go back and forth on that. Daron Payne 18.9 basically.
Yeah, good player. They're already paying Jonathan Allen a crap ton of money, so I also
don't think they had a lot of people going in. I don't think they had a lot of people going into free agency.
No, they don't have a lot of good players.
Yeah,
and all the good players, honestly, are probably on the defensive line. So I mean they have the most money by far currently wrapped up in the interior defensive line. I mean, just by looking at cap hits, like they have 2 of the top 6 right now. So
nice.
Yep.
And obviously the absolute biggest one, the man without an agent who's been trying to work a deal with the Baltimore Ravens, is now on a franchise tag. Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. The price tag for a quarterback with the franchise tag was $32.416 million. Lots going on in this one. This one's a pretty loaded franchise tag. Obviously, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have been trying to work out a deal for a really long time to extend his time in Baltimore. He doesn't have an agent. He's been advocating for himself. And the talks about extending him have gone through like a roller coaster. They really heat up and then absolutely hit the brakes. Let's return back to it. Ultimately, they were not able to reach a deal before the franchise tag deadline of yesterday, the 7th at 4 p.m.
Or all of last offseason.
Yeah. And decided to slap him with the franchise tag. What are your thoughts?
I don't think they slapped him. They probably just like.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
if I wanted him to stay, I wouldn't slap him.
I'm just gently put it on. You like stamp, you like type of thing.
Stamp. That's different than slap. Well, I wouldn't want to slap him though. That's disrespectful. And clearly, there's not good blood right there.
Clearly, there's not good blood in general with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens currently.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's a
loaded one.
It's a bit unprecedented.
Yeah.
The closest thing that I think we've seen in recent history is Kirk Cousins with the
Mhm.
Commanders. He was franchise tag in consecutive years,
Mhm.
apparently with the non-exclusive franchise tag. And he ended up, leaving and going to the Vikings.
Mhm.
But Kirk Cousins did not have an MVP to his name. He was
Yeah.
not what Lamar Jackson is to this offense. He was not drafted in the first round to be your future
Yeah.
franchise quarterback. He was insurance drafted for Robert Griffin III. He was never expected to be what he is.
Yeah.
It's a very different situation. I honest to God, I don't know if we've ever seen this
Not
type
like
of situation. And
what are the Ravens without like Lamar
well,
Jackson
we've
is
seen
the
it. It's
entirety of
not
the
good.
Ravens. Like
Yeah, I think there's something I forget the stat. I read it. They're top 5 in like offensive success with him, and I think they're 31st without him. I don't
wow.
remember the exact stat, but it's something along those
Yeah.
lines. I need to start sending you these
Writing them
stats when I
down or
found them.
sending yeah.
Yeah, just so I know where to find them. But instead, I find myself mindlessly scrolling through Twitter. I read it. I
Yeah.
think, I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
I don't.
Just bookmark it.
Yeah, well, my bookmarks. The problem is I bookmark things and I forget that I
I
bookmarks.
bookmark and then I forget where to find the bookmarks. Like I don't know
Oh.
where to go to find them. So
I don't have
I
that
just
issue.
usually DM them to you or to myself.
Well, yeah. But yeah, so it's really interesting. I think that he ends up back in Baltimore. Like I think ultimately that's where it's going to end up because I don't know. The NFL feels very differently about Lamar Jackson than I would have expected. Like I don't know who you could really compare him to in this scenario because like everyone would take Patrick Mahomes over him. Like I guess maybe you look at
Is it
Josh
like
Allen and you say
is it like a
like
Deshaun Watson?
no, because
Like
Deshaun Watson wasn't an MVP.
yeah.
Like I'm just trying to, and Josh Allen hasn't been either, but like I'm trying to think like if this were Josh Allen, like how many teams would snap up the chance to have him? And that's what's so confusing is
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow,
Like,
yeah, like
yeah.
no teams are wanting to take advantage of the possibility of like they're legitimately coming out and saying we're not going to try and even negotiate with him.
Yes.
Which I don't blame them for because I think it's pointless. Because what's going to happen is they're going to spend a crap ton of time negotiating, and then Baltimore's just going to match it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
like I get why they don't do it. But yeah, I don't know where this ends. It's so intriguing because it could go so many different directions.
Yep.
I don't know if this could possibly end amicably. Like
that's what I was just about to say.
And like what's even more confusing is because Lamar doesn't have an agent, we aren't getting the information like we normally do. Like people, I don't think the general public is aware of how much agents will push to Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and push. The Ravens have offered this much. Instead, we get like these random reports and we're not really sure where they're coming from because Lamar doesn't have an agent to directly like put pressure on the Ravens.
Yeah,
so like
and put like PR statements out.
Do we want fully guaranteed? Does he want half guaranteed? Like we don't really
we have
know.
No idea what he's looking for.
There's been so many reports of negotiations and where they are, where they've stalled. And that's what's so confusing is I don't know who's asking for what and what they're landing on. And this could end up really, really bad. This could end up with a long-term holdout. Like, I don't know what direction this is going to go. Lamar doesn't seem, I wouldn't blame him if he didn't play on the franchise tag. But what they've been negotiating for a year now. Nothing has changed.
No.
So, and if no one else, like, if I'm sure what Lamar was hoping was some other team was going to set the market of what Baltimore has to pay him. But if no other team is negotiating with him, then we're back to where we were a year ago, which is Lamar and Baltimore just talking in a vacuum. And that has gotten us nowhere. So I don't know. I have no idea.
I also think there's like huge ramifications for the organization as a whole. Like this is going to spark dissidence within the organization, between players, between coaches, between scouts, and all rest of the staff. There are two camps here, and one of them is you pay the man what he wants. He was an MVP, and he's literally our entire franchise, or you don't, and then these players feel like they're stuck here for somebody who's not going to pay stars. What are they going to do with me? I think it creates a really, really hostile environment for the Ravens. And I don't know. Talking about does it end amicably? I don't see a way that it does.
I mean, the only way it does is if they agree on a contract soon.
Yeah. Soon.
And
that's part of it too.
I think the most bizarre thing about this for me is the Ravens have long been like one of the least dramatic franchises I feel like ever. I mean, they have such a short history. Like they started in 96, with the exception of Ray Lewis literally murdering someone. Like they haven't had a lot of issue. They had one general manager for like 90% of that. John Harbaugh. They've had like what, 2 head coaches? It was like Brian Billick and John Harbaugh, and maybe one or two other guys mixed in. Like
the last time I had this much drama was when they missed the draft pick in 2011.
Oh yeah, and I guess Ray Rice. But again, that was like, that wasn't long-term drama. That was, he did this thing cut, I think, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, coming from a franchise that normally just has all their shit together, it's even kind of more confusing. And I want to know, I would love to be a fly on the wall to just know why Lamar isn't getting exactly what he wants. And I don't blame the Ravens for negotiating. And I think I think if Lamar had an agent, this would be done already. Because I think, and this isn't, I'm not trying to insult Lamar, but like, you can be a smart person and not be ready to negotiate. Like it's someone's job to negotiate. That's a sports agent's job. And Lamar,
why you have an agent.
He doesn't have, I'm assuming he doesn't have a lot of experience in negotiating at this level for this amount of money with all the small little things.
Yes.
And that's probably slowing the process down, at least somewhat.
Yeah. I mean, you look at something like Daniel Jones' guaranteed money, right? I just wanted to point it out. His $500,000 workout bonus, that we were talking about workout bonuses, is fully guaranteed. Like, that's just a little caveat in contracts to work that makes it work for both of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you can sit here and know the ins and outs of.
I doubt they've got anywhere close to that.
No, that's what I'm saying.
They've not gotten even close to the point of negotiating these small things. So,
no. I did want to talk really quickly about what's been going on, though, with the whole situation. Very shortly after he was stamped, I'll say stamped with the franchise tag, so many teams have put out like official PR statements. We will not be pursuing Lamar Jackson. And there's, I know your feelings on it, but there have been conspiracy theories flying around about collusion and trying to reset the quarterback market. But it was whether you think it's collusion or not, you have to admit it was odd that all of these teams very quickly came out and said that there's no harm in talking to the guy and gauging market value and interest and even just data on what he's looking for. And these teams very, very, very quickly put out very official statements that said, we are not interested in pursuing Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. I don't think it's like some agreed upon effort. Like there's rumors out there that like, the owners are working together to squash the quarterback paying market.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
There are plenty of other ways that they get around those rules.
It's a bunch of rich dudes that just have, they're having a dick measuring contest. Like, I'm sorry, but you're 32 of these dudes are not all agreeing to not pay. Like, they're not agreeing to pay this dude specifically to do this one task. Like, all it takes is one of those owners to just say, yeah, but what if I do it and then I get a franchise quarterback and we win a Super Bowl? That would make me a lot of money in ticket sales. They're not all doing. I don't believe that. They're all in the business to make money. Why are that doesn't answer any of the other questions. Like if it's not that, I don't know why they're putting out these press releases of whatever.
When you could have just stayed quiet. Like
you could have said nothing.
No one. Yeah, exactly. So odd to say the least. Very odd. And I was saying to you, I think this is the perfect time to highlight that Lamar Jackson really needs an agent, because not only is it like
a lawyer, which is actually
or like a really good PR team. Like, please.
Well, so specifically for the lawyer thing, like it's a kind of common. It's becoming more common practice in the NBA among stars. Like, I want to say that Joel Embiid does not have an agent, a full-time agent. I also believe James Harden. Well, I think he might have just signed one, but he didn't when he negotiated his last last contract. Neither did Joel. It keeps them from paying large amounts of money in the long term off those contracts, and they just pay like a small, not small, but an amount of money for negotiating that one deal. I think Lamar could use that.
And I think part of it too is like I mentioned it because this man's stock looks like it's falling, and with all of these teams coming out and saying absolutely not, we're not pursuing him, even just hiring like a good PR strategist, like something. So this man needs something, and I really hope somebody helps him out. But let's move on quickly. Trades. I want to talk about 3 rumors / permissions. So wide receiver from the Rams, Allen Robinson, has been given permission to seek a trade. So he is able to go out and talk to other teams.
Congrats.
Yes. The big one, though, Aaron Rodgers, or one of the big ones, Aaron Rodgers
is out of his retreat.
Yay! We never even got to talk about his darkness retreat because of the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers. Oh no, we did. We did at once. I don't know. Either way, he came out and now he has been given permission to speak to the Jets specifically, just the Jets as of right now.
Yep.
And the Jets players and staff and family is making a huge push for him. Pretty much every player who's somebody on the Jets has been on Twitter, except Zach Wilson and Mike White. Mike White said he wants to come back. Has been very, very open about wanting Aaron Rodgers to be a New York Jet.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't? I understand the man has had his issues, but
he's a weird guy. But
but he is a back-to-back MVP.
Yeah. I mean, he's a fantastic quarterback. The Jets.
Yeah.
The Jets should be in the market for Lamar Jackson. Anyway, the Jets have a really good team. And if they had Aaron Rodgers, they would be a really, really great team, probably. So, but Aaron Rodgers is reportedly taking his time. He may or may not go into another darkness retreat. Who knows? We might not know.
That's when he decides if he wants to sign the paper or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But from what I've read, the longer this takes, the more likely it is that he doesn't return to the Packers. So,
yes.
Whatever.
Yep. And last but not least, lots of rumors floating around about wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins being potential traded away. Lots of talk about the Patriots like 2 weeks ago about DeAndre Hopkins being a Patriot. He's kind of minding his own business and not putting any fuel on the fire, but it seems like he is being shopped around a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And you already mentioned Derrick Henry is being shopped for a potential trade. So either way, that's the trade scenarios.
Yeah, it's that time of year. Anyone that makes a lot of money is probably being shopped.
And is good. So
yes. Oh, or not.
Kind of good. I think
you don't have to be good.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of not good, cuts. Lots of teams are making their cuts. It's the time where we're getting closer to the deadline to meet the first like checkpoint for the cap is coming up soon. You said, right?
Yeah. So next week, I believe it's March 15th, the league year will officially begin. That's when free agency begins, and every team, I want to say it normally starts at 4:00. By 4:00 on March 15th, I believe, every team needs to be under the cap. Under the cap limit. So whether that's done through cuts, through restructures, there's still a bunch of teams right now that are in negative cap space. They have to be in positive cap space by the beginning of the new league year.
Yep. So many cuts already. These are just a couple of the few we've chosen to highlight for bigger roles on their team and will be possibly looked at in the free agency market. Buccaneers, left tackle Donovan Smith, Chiefs, defensive end Frank Clark, Titans linebacker Bud Dupree, Vikings linebacker Eric Kendricks, wide receiver Chosen Anderson, you may know him as Robbie Anderson, and Jaguars quarterback Shaquille Griffin.
Why are wide receivers weird, man?
So weird. The tweet from that guy always comes back every time. I think about positions. The one that's like how quarterbacks tweet, how running backs tweet, how from David Carter, and how wide receivers tweet.
AJ Brown, he didn't literally quote it, but he said exactly. It was like a friend, something with a knife behind you. I don't know. It was.
I'm going to pull it up because the tweet is hilarious. It really is an all-timer. It says, typical QB tweet. I love my teammates. God is good. Typical running back tweet. Keep grinding. typical tight end tweet, derp, and typical wide receiver tweet, the enemy speaks kindly and holds a knife. It reigns true in every
And
aspect.
February 26th, in quotes, AJ Brown tweeted exactly, quote, the enemy speaks kindly and holds a knife, quote. So
I really can't. Either way, his new chosen name is Chosen. So you may have formerly known him as Robbie, but we will call him Chosen.
Both Robbie with a Y and an IE.
Yeah.
Depending on the year.
Yeah. Either way. Any of these you want to specifically talk about, or do you want to spend our last few minutes?
Eric Kendricks was a little shocking to me. I mean, he's just been awesome since he entered the league. Just been really good. He spent his whole career as a Viking. So that's big. Frank Clark has been disappointing in the regular season, but been awesome in the postseason. But when you're paying Patrick Mahomes a crap ton of money, you're gonna have to make cuts. So yeah, that one wasn't as surprising, but it's a big name up there. So
yeah, I agree. And a lot of these are guys who have made an impact. Bud Dupree's made an impact. A lot of these guys have made impacts. But that's just
maybe not chosen, but
not chosen. And he was traded last year, right?
Yep.
Or was he cut and given?
No, he was traded. He was traded to the Cardinals.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. And finally, as you mentioned, free agency opens up on the 15th. So why don't we highlight some of the key free agents? I'm just going to read the list we have here, and then we can pinpoint a couple. But these are a couple of the big key free agents. I guess we'll start this way. Niners quarterback Jimmy G. I feel like it's just better if you think let's talk about Jimmy G real quick.
Okay, sorry.
How are you feeling?
Chicago Bears just signed someone to an extension, so I'm looking up who he is because I don't actually know who he is. He's a fullback. Okay. All right, he's signed to a 2-year extension. Kerry Blasingame. Yeah. Anyway, Jimmy G. We can zoom through these a little bit. Jimmy G. Yeah. I feel like he might be waiting for a while because we're gonna have to figure out. Well, I mean, it's probably actually the Daniel Jones, the Geno Smith, and the Derek Carr deals getting figured out is great for him from the point of view of there's less he has to wait for. But now he still has to wait for Aaron Rodgers to probably make a decision, and then anything that happens with Lamar Jackson is probably going to impact that as well. But I don't expect him to be back with the Niners.
I agree, and I think a lot of there's going to be a lot of evaluations. So I think teams are going to really have to evaluate what they currently have on the roster before they decide to sign Jimmy G. I'm going to go backwards first. I'm going to start down here. After we talked about Jimmy G, I'm going to start at the bottom, work my way up. Bengals safety Jesse Bates, who is
didn't even start at the bottom. You started second from the bottom.
Oh, well, I was talking about like groupings because I figured you were going to mention CJ Gardner-Johnson. I figured you wanted to talk about him, so I was leaving you the space. Bengals safety Jesse Bates, who's coming off the franchise tag, and Eagles safety CJ Gardner-Johnson.
Probably the non-exclusive franchise tag.
Probably.
Jesse Bates is really good. Safety's made some good money last offseason. And it'll be interesting to see if Jesse Bates is able to cash in after not cashing in last offseason. Like currently, Derwin James is getting $19 million a year. Last offseason, I want to say what was the big name? I think it was Marcus Williams was one of them. And he was making, he made around $14 million a year. Last year, Jesse Bates made about 12.9 on the franchise tag. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the safety market plays out. Going right into that is CJ Gardner-Johnson. He actually played mostly safety after playing mostly slot corner with the Saints. So he's got a lot of versatility. He's really young. He's a hard hitter. It's a shame. He basically said goodbye to the Eagles on Twitter, but there were rumors we were going to franchise tag him, but the cap hold for the season is the main issue because we have a lot of dead cap space. I'm not totally bought in that he's going to leave yet, but it completely depends on the money that he ends up getting. That's going to be really interesting. Is it going to be more in like, if it's up with like Jamal Adams, Minka Fitzpatrick, Derwin James at like 17.5 to 19 million, we're not signing him. I expect him to be much more around the Marcus Williams, maybe a little bit less like Quandre Diggs type of deal, which is around 13.5 to 14. I expect both of them to kind of be in that area. Jesse Bates probably a little bit higher. So,
gotcha. I'm going to breeze through this really fast so we can get back up to a couple of skill positions. Cornerbacks, Buccaneers, Jamel Dean, Eagles, James Bradbury, and Vikings, Patrick Peterson. Bills linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds. Browns defensive end, Jajavian Clowney, and Eagles defensive tackle, Javon Hargrave, who was third in sacks, second in pressures from his alignment. The Chiefs, for offensive tackles, the Chiefs, Orlando Brown, Jaguars, Jawan Taylor, Niners, Mike McGlinchey. And for skill positions, we can start with Dolphins tight end Mike Gesicki and Cowboys tight end Dalton Schultz, both of which have been pretty big staples in their organizations in the past couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see that. I think those are really the only huge key free agents for tight end, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least the big names, yeah. I do want to look at cornerback real quick because I think it's really interesting. James Bradbury and Jamel Dean are probably the top two names, arguably, on the cornerback market, along with, I think, the Patriots guy who is officially a free agent. Yeah, he's going to be up there too.
It's a two J's, something Jones.
Yeah, I don't know why we don't have.
At least they got rid of one of the Joneses. They had like 7 Joneses on the thing, and you could never keep track. Some of them even played the same position.
Sorry, I'm trying to find his name. It's not Daniel Jones.
No,
not him.
I think it's
Jonathan Jones.
Yeah, I was right.
Yeah, he'll be good. But he's probably more like a slot player. But he's in that upper tier of free agent cornerbacks. It's probably in a different tier. But anyway, what I was going to say is Jamel Dean, his teammate Carlton Davis got like 14 million, 13 and a half. 14 and a half to stay with the Buccaneers last season. Jamel Dean is much younger. I think he's 25. He's probably going to get he's probably starting at that 14 and a half million type range and then kind of going up from there depending on he's 26, depending on what the market ends up being. James Bradbury is really interesting because he just had an all-pro season.
And was on a 1-year deal.
He's really good. He was on a 1-year deal. However, the scary part is he's 30. Teams aren't normally they don't normally pay 30-plus-year-old cornerbacks. The two exceptions being Darius Slay with the Eagles and Xavier Howard getting a lucrative deal when he was 30. James Bradbury is going to be really interesting to see where he falls because if he wasn't 30, he would probably be in that right below Jalen Ramsey type of deal money. Almost kind of like
a trade rumor too.
Jalen Ramsey, yeah. But yeah, so that's going to be really interesting. Cornerbacks are always I always enjoy seeing their market and where that's at. So yeah.
For running backs, Eagles running back Miles Sanders, we've already touched that you think he's going to walk, and Lions running back Jamal Williams, which is an interesting one to keep an eye on. For wide receivers, we have talked about him way too much, but I have to mention him. No team, Mr. Wide Receiver Odell Beckham Jr., Patriots wide receiver Jacoby Myers, Saints Michael Thomas, and Packers Allen Lazard. Any names stand out for you here?
I mean, the wide receivers, honestly, all the skill positions on offense, I think are going to be really interesting. Not basically because there's not any standouts. Like a couple years ago, Michael Thomas would have made $1 billion on the free agent market, but not anymore because he barely
doesn't
played football.
Yeah.
Odell Beckham Jr. is still Odell Beckham Jr. Whatever. Jacoby Myers, the fact that he's arguably the top name on this list is scary. He's a slot wide receiver that was undrafted or maybe a 7th round pick, but he's nothing special. And Allen Lazard, apparently some people are like having mouth-watering dreams about Allen Lazard, and that's very strange to me. That was like almost an exact quote out of the combine, apparently. But yeah, I wonder if people are going to get overpaid or if overall we're going to see like the running back, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback-ish market like all kind of falter because there's not any big name free agents. Like Miles Sanders is the highlight, and he's arguably a 2-down running back that's had injury concerns coming off his rookie deal. So like that's not exciting.
I think part of the thing with the wide receivers too is we've seen how crazy the wide receiver market has changed with things like AJ Brown and all of this stuff. A lot of teams are more so willing to let some teams will gamble, but other teams are willing to let wide receivers walk so they can draft the next one because wide receivers are coming out of college really, really NFL ready. So I think watching the free agency for wide receivers and the draft it will be really interesting for the wide receiver position. That's what I'm going to really keep my eyes on.
And this is it's important to know. I don't think there's the last couple wide receiver drafts have been very heavy at the top. This one is not.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think anyway. I don't
agree.
think there's a Devonta Smith or a Jamar Chase or
Chris Olave.
Yeah. We've seen like 5, 6 wide receivers go in the first round that we've been excited about. That's not going to happen this year. So
yep.
I mean, it might happen, but I don't think it'll be the same level of talent going in the first round anyway. So.
Either way, that about calls it a show. So why don't you tell us where we can find you before we get to see each other on the start of free agency next week?
You can find me watching the 76ers and pretending that I'm not still sad about the Super Bowl and that the Sixers aren't going to break my heart and ruin my life again in a couple months from now. So, yeah, or on Twitter at mpduncan75. You can also find me. You're on Wednesdays, all that kind of stuff.
You can find me on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's and Ashley. Me, Duncan, and the entire Undroppables crew on our premium Discord channels, which you can gain access to by becoming a patron at patreon.com/theundroppables. You can find me watching Formula One Drive to Survive, as I am now an F1 fan. And you can find me, Duncan, here Wednesday live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or wherever you listen to your podcast to the next day. Thank you.
Don't you normally say something else at the end?
No.
I feel like you normally say something else at the end.
I don't know. Either. Okay, I can. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for your patience as we took a couple weeks off. We are set and ready to go for the NFL offseason. We look forward for you joining us on that ride.
Yeah, that's better. Okay. Bye, everyone. Go Birds.
Bye.